if you're posting every single day on social media, trying to get sales, and it is feeling unreliable, unrepeatable, some days are all right, or some weeks are all right, some weeks are terrible, and it's kind of feeling a little bit unpredictable, it's feeling a little bit, helpless at times because you can't really control the outcome. You have landed on the right video. In this video, I am going to show you probably the thing that you are missing when you are posting every day and trying to get sales, and how to solve it. We are about to go very, very deep. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, I help coaches and creators build a brand around their values, their life, their goals, their experiences, so they can build a brand that positions them as a leader and a signal in the market so they actually stand out. And then I help them with the model to be able to grow that to 10 to 20K per month. And today's video, we're focusing more on the model than the brand side of things, okay? But just know that if you have a very, very strong brand, good ideas behind it and everything else, all of this stuff is going to work 10 times better. And what I'm about to show you in this video was actually responsible for taking one of my clients, Toby, who was a fitness coach, from joining me at around 4 to 5K months. And he literally hit his first 10K month in about 4 months because we did this. Now, he was running ads and he was making sales from the ads, but there was an audience there that he was posting content to, but he wasn't doing this stuff to. As soon as we added this, he started to monetize his audience so much more effectively that we doubled his business, or maybe a tiny bit more than doubled his business in like 4 months. That's crazy. So let's get straight into it. And by the way, I go way too long on these videos, so I'm going to time myself. Let's see if we can keep this within 20 minutes on the old Garmin. All right, let's go. So I've just got it right here, ready to go. So first of all, right, like we said, let's just remind ourselves where we are. If you are posting all of the time and sales are feeling unreliable, unpredictable, this is the solution. But first of all, let's just kind of give ourselves some context here, right? Here's what most coaches do. And I've worked with probably over 200 coaches now, and this is really, 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 really common. And the solution is so close, but people just aren't doing it. So the context is most coaches, if you're in that boat, probably you as well, they're way too passive in their approach to business, right? They're way too passive because they are kind of just waking up every day. They're posting every single day, and they're focusing on all these kind of tactics when it comes to posting. They're, oh, what's wrong? Is it that my format is wrong? Or if you're doing this really weirdly, maybe you're thinking, oh, do I need to clone myself and have a second version of me on the camera? Is that why I'm not making sales? None of that shit is why you're not making sales. And it's not going to be your hooks either and stuff like this, right? But this is what they're doing. They're posting, they are hoping that someone comes in, and they're probably spending a little bit of time every single day messaging the people that are liking and everything else and hoping that they turn into clients, right? The problem with this, right, is most of this whole entire approach is passive. We are hoping for people to come in. We're hoping for people to piece all of the pieces together, find their own sense of urgency, which we know in most niches is non-existent for a lot of people, and message you, or the right person interacts. And in my experience, especially back when I was a fitness coach, a lot of the people that would actually sign up never liked any of my stuff. So, only focusing on signs of intent like likes and everything for sales is you're going to miss out on a lot. So the problem here is it's unpredictable, right? We are just kind of hoping for the best. And this is where that feeling of, what's the word? I'm getting my words a bit mixed up here. Helplessness comes in, right? That's where that feeling of helplessness starts to come in because it's unpredictable and you need your money, right? I mean, you want this to grow. Problem, no ability to control the outcome, right? Again, where this feeling of hopelessness comes in, which is the worst place to be, where you're like, I can't really control this outcome, and I'm nervous and I'm scared all the time, and I'm feeling anxiety because I don't know what's going to happen next, because we can't really control the outcome. We're just hoping for the best. And finally, this will become clearer as we go through the rest of it, but there's no learning over time, right? There's a little bit of learning, but because you're not actually focusing on generating sales, and you'll realize that soon, there's nothing to learn in terms of the skill of what your market really needs to hear to actually raise their hand and become a client. You're not really learning over time. Like I said, this one's going to become more obvious over time once we go into the rest of all of this stuff. So the solution here is we need to consistently give your audience a reason to raise their hand, right? We want to go for every single week, and we want something out there that is a reason for them to raise a hand and to get into a conversation with you, ideally a sales conversation, right? And don't mistake this for just doing random lead magnets all the time. Like, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It can generate conversations, but a lot of people will do lead magnets and they're thinking, oh, make your lead magnet as good as their paid stuff, dude. But usually this ends up being some like tactical shit that people will raise a hand for and get all this free stuff, and you can find yourself just kind of like building this army of freebie hunters that don't actually ever want to spend any money. Which is probably, like, if you're doing that, you probably know what I mean. The solution number 2 is we need to sell more than just your core offer over and over again. Because if you're thinking about this now and you're like, well, okay, I need to make my offer more so I can raise more hands, you might be realizing, well, isn't that going to be annoying? Like, isn't that going to be really annoying? And like over time, isn't that just going to become less and less effective? Yeah, kind of true. So this is why we need to sell more things. And again, we're going to cover that in this video. And solution, we need this in a repeatable process for predictability and learning. Predictability, because we want that in your business. And learning, because when we can keep a tight rhythm, so we can begin to turn your business into more of a system, we can see what's working and what's not working so much better, and then we can learn from that. So this is all the things that we're about to cover in this video. So let's get into it. First of all, the setup. This is just a quick one, but I think it's useful to realize, right? Over time, we want to build a good environment to warm people up and then to sell them. And I call this the pre-sell flywheel. I call it the pre-sell flywheel because basically when people land in its 3 different platforms, they're not any secret platforms. You probably can imagine what they're going to be already. But they're 3 different platforms where if one person jumps on one, they're usually going to fall into the others. And eventually, because they're being pre-sold in different ways across all platforms, they're eventually going to buy, which is nice. So, oh my God, I'm coughing. Sorry. You can break this pre-sell flywheel down to 3 pieces, right? So we have one piece in this pre-sell flywheel, which is your overall content ecosystem that builds your brand. This piece gets people to know you, to trust you, to like you or dislike you. Either one is fine. But we build up a brand over here mostly. There's a huge amount of overlap between these, but this is just if we had to give them headlines. Then we have another one for depth. Right, we have another platform where once they know who you are and they kind of know your world a little bit more, then we can have some depth with them. We can show them that we are the expert. We can show them that we know what we are talking about. And then we have another platform where we can make offers, without being punished by any algorithm, without annoying people, and with them actually being bought, which is nice. So we do that on 3 platforms, right? Instagram for the brand, YouTube for the depth, and email for the offer. Huge amount of overlap, right? Because like email is going to have depth as well, and it's also going to have well building and branding and everything else. So there's a huge amount of overlap, but this is the main thing. Now, I learned this the hard way as well. This is just a little side note. When you see this, you might think, well, why don't I just get them straight into the offer making place if I just want to be making offers and making sales? Here's the thing. What I have found is if people go straight to your email list, let's say from like cold ads to lead magnet to email list, they don't care about you very much, and they're not going to read your emails, and they're not going to do anything from them either. So the whole flywheel is very important, because usually Instagram is going to be the place where people start, maybe sometimes on YouTube, and then email is the place where they want to end up, right? So email is where the magic happens, especially in what we're talking about here, because in terms of sales, that is, because there's no algorithm to contend with. You can say whatever you want, and within reason, there are some things that are going to be seen as spam, but you can make offers consistently all of the time, and you can do it without being annoying. Like when I'm making offers to my audience, I'm not like doing this really hard campaign and everything's like buy my stuff. It's artful pieces of content, and we're going to go through how to do this as well, by the way. And it's not selling people, but it's pre-selling people, which means we're selling people on the right beliefs and ideas. So people are reading this stuff and they don't even realize that they're being sold to, and then it's just a buy my thing, right at the bottom, nice and easy. So the emails are valuable by themselves, right? We don't want to just, when we're going through this whole thing, we don't want to just be hard selling everyone every single day. But the biggest thing is there's no algorithm to contend with. If you start making offers over on Instagram, your views are going to go down, your engagement's going to go down, your reach is going to go down, stuff like this. It's a very quiet environment where you're actually read, right? So I don't trust that captions and stuff like this over on Instagram are going to be read, right? Like it's such a noisy environment and people are there in a different place. Like people are on Instagram when they are in the queue at Tesco and stuff like this, right? Could be the same for email, but email just lives there. It stays there, right? People can go back to it because it's already in their inbox. So it's a very quiet environment where there's going to be less competition, where you can stand out more and you're going to actually be read in the right situations, right? Especially if you're selling to people that are like working office jobs and stuff. Just as an example, just a way to think about this, right? They're going to be bored at their job and they want to look like they're working. They're going to start reading your emails. Right. And someone asked me, like, does anyone read emails before anymore? Yes, they do. Trust me. On the results that can happen, and like, you know, when I'm signing people up, how much they know about me from my emails and other clients as well, they do. Biggest thing is we can make offers consistently, right? So you should be building your email list over time. Let that be known. Like that should be a thing that's happening every single month. That email list should be building with the right people. Now, with that being said, this whole thing doesn't require you to do email. Don't feel like you need to be on email right now. This is just the setup, so you're understanding this, right? But you can do what we're about to do on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on like any of these platforms as well. You can kind of even do it without platforms and just with messaging people, but you'd rather have some sort of marketing going on somewhere. But this is just important to set it up for the long term, right? We want your email to be growing, but don't let this deter you from the rest of the video because you can do this with Instagram. So that's the setup, right? Now, when we think about all of this, right, the biggest thing we need to understand is the distinction between content and campaigns. So we're getting into the meat of things now. And this is where most coaches that are experiencing this problem are going completely wrong because they've never really thought about this distinction and they're doing one more than the other, right? So this is one of the most useful things we can do. Here it is. Very simple distinction. Content is your daily posts, right? Content's job is to build connection with you, is to build context. That means, you know, who you are and your world and your story and everything else. Builds context around your offer, why you're doing what you're doing and everything else. It builds your brand so people know, you know, what to associate you with and who you are known for, what you are known for. And it builds trust, right? So your daily content, your posts that you're doing daily, and if you're in this kind of situation right now, it's probably the exact thing that you are experiencing, that you're doing every single day is content. This is good for this stuff, right? But it doesn't necessarily make sales. It will have a sale come through every now and then because someone is a little bit more proactive. But if we're only doing content, we are only being passive. We're passively building all of this stuff, which is still good, but we're not really taking from it. The way that I look at this, by the way, is content waters the crops. Let's imagine we're farmers for a second, right? Content waters the crops and we're watering these crops and they're looking beautiful. Campaigns are the harvest. Harvesting that cash, baby. Campaigns are when we get out into those crops that we've been watering for a while and we harvest the ones that are ready, right? I've never farmed before. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but I'm pretty sure it's close enough, right? Content waters the crops, campaigns harvest. So if we are only doing content, which is the first biggest problem that you're doing right now, if you're in this situation, if we're only doing content and campaigns are never happening, and we're going to define campaigns in a second, right? But and I'm going to teach you how to do them, but campaigns are never happening, or campaigns are happening really sporadically. And that's a big problem I see with coaches, by the way. Like they'll tell me, oh, sometimes I don't call it campaign. Sometimes they call it like a launch or a CTA. I just did a campaign 8 weeks ago. So I'll do one again in 4 weeks. 12 weeks in between. 4 chances across the year. That's crazy. And I've heard that before. So campaigns is the harvest. So if you're only doing content, you're just watering these crops for ages, hoping that something happens. But imagine if a farmer was doing that. They'd be waiting for ages for these crops to finally turn into money because they're selling that shit too. And they go broke. So then we need campaigns, right? Campaigns is the other side of this. Campaigns are focused periods where you are trying to create an outcome, right? Focus periods where you have something to offer and you are trying to create an outcome from your audience. Okay, so the distinction is super important here because you will either do all content, never asking for anything, and you won't get anything or very, very little, or you will do all campaigns, which this is a rare one, but all campaigns, and then you'll wonder why these campaigns, and all campaigns have most of the time the same offer, and you're going to wonder why these are slowly dwindling and getting less and less effective. And that's because you're not actually spending time watering the crops, which we also need to do, right? Or a very common one is you blend them together, right? So because you have never made this distinction, you're blending them together and you're kind of like doing content and you're hoping it kind of makes a sale. And, you know, you're kind of getting the two things mixed up and you're not so sure where you are. Finally, the way I really like to think about this, especially when we think about brand building, because we are allowed to build a brand that's wider than just value about your thing. Like we can build a brand around your interests and everything else, and we should, because we want people to connect to you as a human as well, especially in this day and age. Content is the art, campaigns are the science, right? So what that means is content, you don't have to overthink about content too much. Right? Content, just like art, right? When people create art, they're creating it through themselves, for themselves, and the audience sees it, right? Content is often, art is often the relationship between the artist and the world and how they're experiencing that and they're putting it out there, right? They're not overthinking it. They're not overthinking, what does these people want to see? What do these people want to hear? They're not overthinking all of this stuff, right? If you start doing that, your content becomes very, very markety. I know it is marketing, but it becomes very, very markety and very, very clinical. And it's not as good to create that resonance that we want through your brand. So content is art, right? Where you're creating and you're enjoying it. Campaigns are the science. I'm pretty sure this shouldn't say is, it should say are, but campaigns are the science, right? Campaigns, when we have a focus period where we have an offer and we have a deadline and we're making this campaign, this is where we get our marketing hat on a little bit more. This is where we start thinking about what does our client, what does our like perfect client want to hear right now? What is the pain point? This is where we start thinking about this. So there's a distinction, there is a gap, right? And that gap really helps you build your brand and make more sales. And don't worry, in this right down here, we're going to actually go through how to run these campaigns, and we're going to go pretty in depth for a YouTube video at least. So that's the difference between content and campaigns. And think about this now, like where are you? Are you doing mostly content? Are you kind of blending the two and it's not very effective? Or are you doing all campaigns? It's probably mostly content or blending the two. So then, cool, if we've got to this point, and maybe I should have structured this video a bit better, but if we've got to this point now and you're thinking, maybe I need to make more campaigns. You might be thinking, well, if I need to do more campaigns, isn't it going to be really, really boring if I've got this one core offer? Because I've been told by all the gurus, you can only have one offer and one price point and blah, 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 until you make £1 million. You've been told by all of them that stuff, right? So then you're like, well, how can I make campaigns consistently if I'm always selling the same thing? Surely that's going to get boring. Surely that's going to get less effective. You would be correct. So we need offers, but we need lots of them, right? So offers are our way to give your audience a reason to actually raise their hands, right? And by the way, offers don't even necessarily need to be paid offers, but they need to be offers that, you need to offer something that someone needs to raise their hand for so we can at least generate the lead and get into the conversation with them. But most of the time in this video, we're going to be talking about offers that are actually sold. So if we don't have offers, we haven't got a reason for people to actually raise their hand, and then we're going to struggle. Most people don't make offers because they think they don't have leads, right? Just listen to that for a second. Most coaches don't make offers because they think they don't have leads. So they think, what's the point of me making this offer and doing this campaign to my audience if there's no leads there? This is the complete wrong way to think about it. Offers create the interest, right? This is like being again, I'm not a fish. I've never done fishing, so maybe this is going to be wrong, but you get the idea. This is like being a fisherman sitting on the edge of the riverbank and thinking to yourself, I can't see any fish, so I'm not going to put my bait in. Or I've seen them sometimes throw some bait out first to generate the fish before getting the hook in there. Oh, I can't see any fish yet, so I'm going to wait till I see some fish, then I'll throw that bait in. The bait is the bait. The bait is the thing that generates them, right? And that's the exact same thing as the offer. I know saying bait is a bit of a weird way to say it, but offers create the interest, right? Offers are there to turn a desire that's already in the market that people are already thinking, into demand. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh, this isn't going to work for me because I haven't got any leads, it's because you haven't been doing this. You don't generate leads for no reason. You generate leads because you're putting out something that they actually want and they put their hand up for it, right? So don't think like that, please. But if we only make your core offer, as I've already said, it gets old quick, right? If we want to consistently make more offers, because the more offers you make, the more money you're going to be able to make, well, then you think, oh, let me just do it every single day. Obviously, if you're just doing the same exact offer every single day, every single week, it's going to get old very quickly. And you haven't got that time to kind of build up that brand again, right? So here's how we do this. I call it bundling and unbundling. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to have loads and loads and loads of different offers, right? That confuse things. So we don't want to have multiple different programs that people are going into and we're kind of like having to hold all these different things. We want one program still, but we want to be able to bundle it and unbundle it to be able to create multiple offers and products without you on a delivery side having to do anything or confusing anything, right? So a single program is made up of multiple components. When we can clearly see these components, we can begin to play with them, right? So the Align Creator, this is my program. What is it made up of? Well, we've got in-person events. We have one-to-one Zoom calls. We have one-to-one WhatsApp. We have group coaching calls. We have the community. We have all of the workshops and the course content. We also now, because this is a bit of an older image, we also now have AI tools. We also now have... forgot what the other thing was going to be, but we got AI, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Think about this for yourself, right? 20 minutes already, we're nowhere near. Think about this for yourself, right? What are all the components that actually make up your program? Each of these components can be bundled and unbundled to create different offers and products, right? And the beauty of bundling and unbundling this stuff, right, is that you do not need to create anything new or create any new ways of delivery or add anything new to your calendar to be able to do this. You can just work within the stuff that you're already doing because programs are always made up of multiple components. So common offers that my clients will make and I will make as well. First of all, your front door offer, which is just your main offer. Boom, we got that, bang. Then we have reskinned offers, right? So this is the same thing, but a new focus. So if your front door offer is 90 days and you're focusing on like one aspect of your overall process to get them in through the door, well, then you can do the exact same kind of delivery, the exact same price, the exact same everything else, but you can just reskin it. So it's like, this month we're going to be working on this, come and join. Sprint offers. So you chunked down versions of this main offer. So if the main offer that is the front door offer that people are coming in first is 90 days, you can break this down to 4 weeks or 6 weeks to make it really easy for someone to say yes. And we focus on like one specific thing gets done. We can break it down to micro offers, right? So we can take assets that are inside your program and we can turn them into products, right? We can take workshops or we can take some things that you've already built out and turn them into digital products. When we sell the digital products, it's another reason for someone to raise a hand and give you money, but we're not trying to get rich of these digital products. This gives us a reason to message these people. So then, you know, they consume our thing. We build this list of customers, which are a very, very valuable list. But then we can message these people, have a conversation with how it went, make them an offer. So then paid workshops, right? This is one of my favorites for certain niches, especially if you're on something similar to mine, which is business coaching, right? Paid workshops are really, really, really good where you can solve problems on Zoom. The beauty with these, especially if you're already doing like workshops or Zoom calls inside your program, is you can literally create things for your clients and then you can run these things as campaigns to your audience for paid, right? So I can create, let's say this was a workshop and I was doing it for clients. I can be creating for clients, creating the best experience for clients, and I can sell it for £50 or £100 to my email list, generate customers, hands raised, very high likelihood to buy leads. They can experience my thing, pre-selling, seeing how good I am, and then I can converse with them afterwards and make them an offer. Right? Immersive experiences, challenges, webinars, live events, things like this, and then game plan offers. This is a really effective one for pretty much all niches, which is you can do a paid call plus assets to get a result. So we can bundle some things together, right? So if you have, if you know that there is a specific problem that or pain that your niche wants to solve, you can solve it with a handful of assets that you've already got, and then a one-on-one call with you, and then obviously we're making them an offer on that call to continue on. Now, I want to give you a little story time here. Immersive experiences. This was back years ago now when I was in an offer that was kind of struggling. It was struggling, but I looked at my pipeline, right? And different video for a different day, but you should know where everyone is in terms of the pipeline. I looked at my pipeline and I had loads of leads, right, that had shown interest, but they'd never really pulled the trigger. They were either struggling to even get on a call with me, or I was struggling to get them on a call with me, or they were not wanting to buy, right? But they were leads, they were interested. So I did a 5-day challenge. Right? I did a 5-day challenge where we had a call Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I set it up in like 2 days. I didn't do a Facebook group or all this stuff. I just got them in a WhatsApp group. And the 5-day challenge I got 40 people on there organically. I probably had about 5,000 followers at the time. And then 7 of them bought, and it was like 1.5K each. One of them's still working with me today, right? He's become a coach, all this kind of stuff. So things like this can be really, really useful, right? So all of this stuff, like the main thing I'm trying to make you aware of here is like, we want to be making multiple offers with all of the different things that you've got available, not to try and make like loads of money from these smaller things, but because they all lead towards your main thing. And so often, you know, people aren't ready to pay like 2K for your main program, but they'll pay £50 for an aspect of it, a small part of it, a component of it. And then that will give them the trust in you because you've consumed it and they've realized it's good to then join the bigger thing, right? So everything's using components we already have, so we don't have to be creating new delivery and, you know, confusing ourselves. And here's the biggest part of all of this. This is so amazing when you really understand this. This allows us to tap into different parts of your audience and readiness levels versus one offer. Let me really go a bit deeper into this, right? So if you only have one offer, one core offer, because the gurus told you one offer, one price point, blah, blah, you're only ever tapping into that exact part of your audience. If you've got 5,000 followers, for example, you know, there might be 2% at any one time that are interested in that exact thing, right? Because of what they believe they need and because of their level of readiness at this point. When we can do this, we can tap into all different parts of your audience, right? In terms of desire and in terms of readiness. So readiness is like, you know, they might not be ready for the big thing, but they're ready for a sprint offer, a smaller thing, or a micro offer. So then there's a whole new chunk of your audience that can actually be monetized, brought into your world and communicated with and made more offers. But also in terms of their needs, right? So your core offer is going to be positioned in a certain way. But they might not feel like they need that, but they might feel like they need a smaller part of it. So again, when we do this, we're able to tap into different desires, different needs, and this is how we're learning, right? If you're only ever making one offer because the guru's told you to, well, then you're not learning anything else, right? You just got to stick with it and hope for the best and force it to work. When you can make all these different offers, I can make offers around content, branding, funnels, whatever, right? With these micro offers, you know, many different angles of that. I can start to see what seems to get most people excited, right? With every single week that passes, I can get more data on exactly what the market is wanting right now by putting offers in front of them. Some will do terribly and some will do really good. And then what does that do? Well, it gives me more data and understanding for everything else. I might even change my front door offer, my main offer, to reflect what I am seeing with my smaller offers. So we are learning all the time. Okay. So now we're here and we understand that we need offers. We need lots of them. Now we start to get into, because you might be wondering, we've already been over 20 minutes. When are we gonna learn something in terms of what to do? Well, we make these offers and we turn it into a rhythm, right? Now let's get a little bit more in depth. So making offers is useful, but turning it into a rhythm where things become predictable is where, I didn't even finish that sentence, but that's where the magic is, right? That's where this stuff actually becomes predictable. We call this the sales rhythm, right? That is exactly what we call this. So it's a rhythm that makes you sales. So that's why it's named that. Establishing a rhythm of offers throughout the month, right? This is beautiful because most people will like most coaches are not very serious when it comes to their business. Like they're not running it like a real business. They're just kind of, it's way too based on how they're feeling at the time, and they're just kind of doing random things and hoping for the best. The whole entire business, we want to see it as a system. We want to have clear inputs that work on a rhythm, monthly, weekly, and daily. And then we want to be looking at the outcomes, right? So then it's a system we can zoom out and we can see the bottlenecks and everything else. A rhythm helps us be consistent because we don't have to overthink. And also, mentally, the more that we can reduce any decision making in our business, the better, so we can just run. So this allows you to stay consistent with making offers while having a format to stay creative within. So if we have a format of, okay, I make this offer this week, and then nothing this week, and then this offer this week, well then with that, we can get creative with the actual offers that we make within the different types, So this will make more sense when I go through it. So over time, you find your perfect rhythm. So the example of this, week 1, game plan offer, right? We've already talked about these. This might be your sales rhythm. On week 1, you open up the game plan offer to your audience, and there's a reason for people to raise their hand. Week 2, maybe there's nothing on this week. Maybe we give them a little bit of a break. Week 3, we then may open up a paid workshop, right? So you might do that for your clients already. So then you run a paid workshop and you sell tickets to that. Maybe at the paid workshop, you open up your core offer. And then on week 4, you run a campaign to sell the core offer for the remaining spaces, right? So then you can run through this. Of course, the game plan offer can change each week in terms of what it is. The workshop will definitely change each week. You can reskin the core offer each week, but you're running the same rhythm, right? So you're creative within that rhythm. And then as we just stick to this, as the audience consistently grows, everything else becomes more effective, right? And as you learn, your offers become more effective as well because we're learning more. So once we start to understand this, we want to turn it into a rhythm. And I'll just reiterate this again. When we're doing this, email is the best environment. That doesn't mean don't do this now. Definitely do this now, but start to build your email list. I'll talk about how we do this down here, but start to build your email list right away with the right people. Secondly, like just because it's a game plan offer here doesn't mean like everything is only ever like really hard pushing towards a game plan offer. Everything will eventually have the call to action around it in the email, but you don't. But every email wants to be valuable itself. If we're going to make this kind of volume of offers, we need our emails to be enjoyable to read as well. So we don't go super hard, and not every single one is, two days left, quickly buy it. It's not like that kind of email. It's useful world building emails. So then we've talked all about this, right? We've got, we need more offers. We need lots of them. We need to turn these offers into a rhythm. Finally, how do we actually run these campaigns? We've been talking about campaigns all this time. We've talked about the difference between content and campaigns. The big thing that I want you getting here, by the way, is the reason that your content isn't making sales right now is because you're not making campaigns and you need to make more of them. Now, how do we actually run these campaigns, right? We don't just make these offers known randomly, right? We don't just say, hey, this week is this. We run campaigns. We run specific campaigns. We have a specific start date. So we understand the exact start date, and we have a very clear end date, and we make that known from the very beginning. So some coaches' campaigns, they would never call them campaigns if they're doing it like this, but they have a kind of a call to action kind of post. They'll open it, and then they never really have an end date, right? The big problem with this is I see it across the board in all niches. Most of the time, people mostly come in at the start and the end. Middle is like where you're just kind of pre-selling people. So the end is obviously very important because most people come in at the end. But the second thing is, if we're trying to drive towards this offer, and we're trying to pre-sell the ideas of it and everything else, if you don't have an end date, you will be so soft on doing that because you're not really sure when it ends. So start and end date. Usually we do about 5 days. A reason to move now. So you don't need this should not be a month. It should not be anything crazy like this, like 5 days in and out. Reason to move now, right? So they need scarcity and urgency, right? How many spaces? Why do they need to move now? Any bonuses if they move now? All of these different things. We want to give people a reason to move now. Most importantly, because in almost all niches, people have the idea, I want to do this fat loss. I want to lose. I want to take this. I want to get healthy again, get training again, but they never really do it. So we need to give them a reason to move now. and content specifically selling the ideas of this offer. Like I said, we're not necessarily hard selling every single email. We'll usually have like one to open up and make it really, really clear, one at the end, but then everything else in between is selling the ideas, right? And we're going to go over exactly how to do that. But this works so well, mostly because people need a reason to move now. And this allows you to have multiple different reasons why people should move now, right? Especially when you're doing like these little micro offers, workshops, and game plan offers. Like, the reason to move now is it's literally doesn't exist after this week. Like, this is the only time you can ever buy it. So to the actual content inside your campaigns, right? How to sell ideas. So every single piece of content pre-sells them by tapping into these three things. So that means that, you know, you're not just running, we're talking in emails, and I'm going to keep talking emails, but understand this can work anywhere. Let's take your emails. Not every single email is going to say, buy this thing, day 2, buy this thing, day 3. We're pre-selling them first with either a link to buy at the bottom if it's a smaller thing, or a call to action to raise their hand if it's a bigger thing, right? So we get the call to action, of course, at the bottom, but most of the email is pre-selling them, and it's almost pre-selling them secretly, but it's also a useful email. So here are the 3 things we want to pre-sell them on. So number 1 is their present pain, right? So we need to, if we're trying to sell something, and we need to be able to point at the present pain. Present pain means the exact thing that they are aware has happened this day or this week, that they can point at, that this is happening and I am fed up of it, right? We start with the present pain, and we make sure that every single one is pointing at specific and exact present pains, so they realize that they are in this story too. And then only once we've talked about that, we can then talk about the future gain. What is the difference? How is this pain going to transform into gain when they've, you know, worked with you and purchased this product? Next is present plan. This is really important, right? So if we've talked about present plan and future gain, we need to also pre-sell them on your plan, right? Every single product you're selling is pretty much going to have a plan, because we're solving a pain. Well, what's your plan to actually do it? So first of all, we need to understand what their present plan is. We need to be able to talk about, here's what you're doing currently to be able to try and solve this pain, and here's why it's not working. So we poke holes in their present plan. This is taking them to problem aware. They start to realize that they're trying to solve the wrong problem, or that they are doing this in the wrong way. And then your proposed plan, right? This is your present plan. It's not going to work because of this real problem. This is my proposed plan. Here's what I believe you should do instead. And you can say all of this without them even knowing there's a product on the other side. And then you say, by the way, this is exactly what my product does and my offer does. And finally, we pre-sell them on price. We don't pre-sell them on price by explicitly saying the price. We pre-sell them on price by pre-selling them on the cost, right? So we have pain, plan, and price. We pre-sell them on the cost of staying where they are across timer. Timer is, if I can remember properly, time, identity, money, energy, and reputation, right? So we pre-sell the cost of them staying where they are and not taking action on your offer across time, identity, money, energy, and reputation. There's going to be 1 or 2 of those that are more important to your people. And then every single email is thinking about driving them up the indoctrination ladder, right? I have a full video on this on YouTube, but pain aware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware. Most people are going to be pain aware, right? So we again call out the present pain. And then we say to them, by the way, you're in this pain, you've tried all these different things, but here's why nothing's worked, because the real problem is this. Because that is the real problem, and this wants to be a fundamentally different problem than they've ever thought about before. So they now are instilled with hope that this can actually work for them, because they've tried it wrong all this time. And then we push them towards, by the way, the real solution is this, here's my product, right? The hidden benefit of running these campaigns, imagine when you're doing these 3 times a week, 3 times a month, I should say, sorry, for 5 days each with different things. And every single one you're learning more, and every single one you're getting more hands raised, right? So the hidden benefit of this is it generates interest even if you don't get the sale immediately, right? So you might get 10 people interested in maybe your core offer, but then you only 4 people buy. Down the line, there is going way more of these people are going to be buyers, but you're also hearing why people aren't buying. Right? And when you have a no, you can turn it into a yes. You might re-offer them with something else that flows a little bit better with them. You might be able to sell them onto a smaller thing, a game plan offer, or maybe, and this has happened to me before, you're doing a live event, they can't come to the date. So you say, well, why don't you just pay double and we'll do it one-on-one? And he said yes. The hidden benefit is this generates a better understanding of your audience and their wants, right? When we're consistently doing this. So all of this stuff gets better. And finally, making offers allows us to make more offers, right? If you make an offer and you keep having conversations and you keep hearing the same problem come up again and again and again, next week you might do a game plan offer to solve that, because you know if 2 people have said it to you, there's probably 20 people in your audience that have that problem, right? So that's the main thing we need to be doing. And there's one more thing, but the main outcome here is run offers, run campaigns, fucking ask for the sale. Stop being such a nice guy coach trying to hope that they like you enough to buy, and actually make offers to your audience, right? Otherwise you're going to get friend zoned. And then the final one I just thought I'd throw in here as a little icing on the cake is you don't even always need to be doing this. You should be doing it like manually, like we've just talked about, but you can also run automatic campaigns. And I would suggest every single person have one place at least where you are making automatic campaigns, right? And eventually we should be able to get this so you have automatic campaigns running every single day. Meaning, you know how we've just talked about this and you're kind of doing it organically and you're doing it live. You should also have automatic campaigns running every single day independently to when people have actually triggered this campaign. Our way of doing this is very, very simple. Once we have your front door offer that's selling well and your messaging that's selling well and it's taking people up the indoctrination ladder, we turn it into a front door funnel, right? Which is a very, very, very simple funnel where you have an opt-in page. Simple, right? Opt-in page with a pain-aware hook. So you're talking about the pain that you're going to solve inside of this lead magnet. Opts in, and now you're growing the email list. By the way, we will get retargeting ads running towards this. So we're constantly getting people coming through this. Then we have a 10 to 20 minute indoctrination VSL. This indoctrination VSL is designed to take them from pain aware to problem aware to your solution aware. So they want to buy from you and no one else, and then make them the offer there and then. And then they're invited to work together, and there might be a button down below so they can book a call or they can message you. And then finally, here's the fun bit. Once they've gone through this, because we've now got their email, this triggers a high converting campaign. So if you've already run, this is again, by the way, another reason why you should be doing this is because when you run a campaign that's effective, you can make it evergreen. You can then automate that shit. If you've just run a campaign and it's really, really good, you can automate this shit, right? You can actually have this as an email automation that runs maybe even a month or 2 months once someone has entered your email list, so that it's constantly running. And also, by the way, when you're making these different offers, what you can do if there's an offer that works really, really well, let's say you've taken an asset and turned it into a digital product and it's really good, you can run ads to that, and that can run evergreen as well. I've got one micro offer, which is a recorded workshop that I also sold tickets to, turned it into a digital product by just selling it as a digital product. And I've sold 500 of those because I've ran ads to it for a while. And then I turned those people into clients. So this gives us, like, can you see how much more creative we can be about these coaching businesses when we start like fucking thinking differently? They watch this, are invited, and then we take your highest converting campaigns that have already worked because you've already been doing this, and we run that automatically via email afterwards with a one-time offer. So then if we're getting, and this is very easy to do, if we're getting 5 people enter this email list every single day, well, then we have 5 new people entering the campaign. Fun. That's everything. If you want to work together, by the way, if this is looking good, if you want to build a unique brand that stands out from the marketplace, and you want to kind of approach your business from this more analytical way when we're actually thinking about it, right? Down below, you can find my Instagram and just drop me the word signal, and we'll have a little chat and see if we're a good fit. See ya.